Hard to believe looking at me now, a woman of a certain age who's been known to dote on a cat or 20. But there was a time when I was a high-scoring video game addict. The 70s were coming to an end, and so was the era of the pinball machine. When Aunt Rachel took the kids back with her to her family in Baltimore, left Uncle Biff in a shroud of mystery, Biff invited my family of 5 to rent out the first floor of his brownstone. It was a typical cramped New York City apartment with only one television in the living room. Mom was not about to give up her soap operas or her game shows or her sitcoms or her variety shows for my brother and I to play silly video games. Besides, there was no way we could afford the $300 price tag for the Atari console alone. Never mind the $30 to $40 that it would cost for each game cartridge on top of that. Uncle Biff could afford it easily. So when Angus and Crystal came up to spend the summer with their dad, my brother and I would go upstairs and play Pong with them. Sometimes the boys would hog the console, hog the joystick, and not relinquish it when they lost a turn. In that case, Crystal and I would retreat to the master bedroom, walk-in closet, and try on her stepmom's lingerie and makeup, because that's what best friends do. Summer ended, and Angus and Crystal went back down to their mom in Baltimore. I didn't feel comfortable going upstairs anymore. Uncle Biff was an intimidating man. His favorite way of greeting us kids was either pinching our cheeks really hard or jamming our thumbs into their sockets. He also had this odd habit of crushing ice cubes with his teeth, as if to say, "Hey, natural element in its solid form, I must reduce you to bits and engulf you at once." We tried not to bug Uncle Biff unless we really had to. Luckily, Ellie Maroney's dad had an Atari console hooked up to his spare TV in the basement. I'd play Street Racer or Space Invaders for hours on end, long after Ellie had been called up to dinner. I reached 11,000 points on Space Invaders. I didn't even know you could go up that high. I was so excited, I bolted upstairs and got Ellie to come down to be my witness. Otherwise, no one would believe me. Even the older, cool kids on the block heard about this. I considered going for the world's record. But before I could immortalize my Space Invaders prowess, the Maroneys got a little concerned. I had worn out my welcome when I didn't even pretend to care if Ellie was home or not, as long as the power was on in the basement. Following summer, Uncle Biff had switched from Atari to Intellivision, or upgraded, as he would say. He went all out with his new toy, buying every single game cartridge available for Intellivision. Before video games, Angus's favorite game was Monopoly. He'd gather us younger kids around the board for the sole purpose of snatching up all the real estate. So we either had to pay him rent or we went to jail. Now, he had a new way to dominate us with Intellivision's golf game, PGA something or other. I had zero interest in it. The next big family gathering, Uncle Biff went on and on about how terrific Intellivision is. So much better than Atari. I was too busy stuffing my face with Granny's homemade ravioli to voice my disagreement. After dinner, as I was admiring Granny's awesome 3D hologram of Jesus and Mary, as in Jesus if you go left, Mary if you go right, when Biff approached me to ask if I still preferred Atari over Intellivision. Atari, I said, not turning my head. I was trying to find just the right spot where I could see Jesus and Mary at the same time. Well, Biff responded in the biffiest way possible. He gathered choice family members into the living room to vote on which was better, Atari or Intellivision. As Crystal brushed past me, crossed the living room to saddle up next to Uncle Biff on the couch, I had a sinking feeling this was not going to end well for me. Biff was the first to vote, of course. Then Angus, then my brother, they all said Intellivision. I was next. I said the same thing I'd said 2 minutes earlier. Atari. Uncle Biff booed and gave me 2 thumbs down. Crystal was my only hope to save face. I mean, 4 against 2 isn't so bad. And what did it matter to her anyway? She didn't even like video games, and she wouldn't know a Space Invader from a spaghetti monster. I was about to learn what Crystal did know, which side of her bread was dipped in olive oil. As soon as she said exactly what she knew Uncle Biff wanted her to say, Biff jumped up from the couch and declared victory. 5 against 1. I had come for the comfort of Granny's ravioli and left crushed like basil leaves in pesto. If you guessed Biff had been bullied himself when he was a kid, you'd be right. When he was a skinny little 10-year-old himself. A bigger kid at school jumped him after school. He was so terrified that he cried for his mother. Literally, "Go get mommy," he called to his little sister, later to become my mom. As sure as there was always an extra jug of Chianti somewhere in the house, you can bet that Angus and Crystal were influenced by Biff. At any given moment I was around them, they were likely to shoot some verbal zinger at me, some petty little way to put me down or put my side of the family down. They were like video game junkies stuck in some zero-sum game of divisiveness and cutthroat competitiveness with no real winners. Uncle Biff and I speak occasionally, nothing too deep. He's mellowed out over the years, stopped crushing ice cubes with his teeth. He's had a number of health issues. First an ulcer, then clogged arteries requiring quadruple bypass surgery. I guess toxic masculinity wasn't healthy for him either. I've worked through the anger, so I don't hate Uncle Biff or feel compelled to even the score, except maybe in some fairly innocuous way, such as writing a cheeky story about him and changing his name to a Back to the Future character. Recently, Biff got to talking about the good old days. When you were all kids, those were the days, huh? It would have been so easy to just go along with it, to say exactly what I knew he wanted me to say. Pretend those days were just one long winning streak for all of us. But they weren't. For me, they weren't. As gently and calmly as I could, I told Uncle Biff my truth. I cited an incident after my first hair disaster, when he humiliated me in front of a room full of people I just met. "You must have taken it the wrong way," he deflected. No, I didn't. I pushed back. And I recounted matter-of-factly what went down. Would you believe Uncle Biff apologized? And it wasn't some just got to get out of this kind of apology. I could hear remorse in his voice. He was truly sorry. And with that quick volley, 2 players in this game of life advanced to the next level. After all, it's not a zero-sum game. Thank you, Rhonda, and thank you, Rough and Ready, for the opportunity to tell my story.